Uh, did anyone, what did you guys think of last week? Can I just ask, like, had you seen content like that before? Was that a first time to see those things? I like both answers. What would anyone say? Anyone on Zoom land got any thoughts on that? Anybody? Had anyone seen or heard of the documentary before? No, but I saw a hand, maybe.
Um, I definitely feel like it was eye-opening because just from my previous one for this class, I like knew that like natives have a connection to the land, but I've never been exposed to that kind of specific like what specifically they
Yes.
do in the culture.
Mm-hmm.
See that in documentaries like that really like kind of helps both the ideas of how integrated the
Yeah, right, right. And how, if you think about it, like there's probably so much diversity that like no one film could ever capture it all. No one class could either. But isn't that cool to think that like no matter where you're from, where because like everyone's indigenous to somewhere. You might have to go really, really far back because you guys moved around, but like somewhere's home. And uh I have friends who are all tracing their, they've got Celtic roots, which, I do too. Look at the hair. Even when it's not Ariel red, but basically they are also religion scholars. They taught at this place called Phillips Andover, which is a prep school back east, kind of like a baby college, honestly. And then they now teach at this day school in DC, which it's fancy when they have to say day school because it's in by comparison to a boarding school where you would spend your time there. And I'm like, oh, I went to public school. We were all day schoolers, oddly specific. But they talked about how they're showing in their own experiences, not to make a potato joke, but yeah, like they're learning about recipes from where they once came from and how that has been a huge vehicle because they love cooking, they love watching and making stuff. That's like the way to kind of restore that connection, no matter how much time has gone in between. And so I hope if there's something you guys take from that or the class in general, it's that idea that if you think this is cool and like you might find yourself also being curious, hopefully, about like what would that look like for me and mine. That is my hope. And you might even get a chance to write about that. We're going to talk about the final or excuse me, the midterm paper now, but there's different, maybe not food exactly, but thinking of that larger perspective of like, how does this relate to my narrative personally and across time? Um, I could talk way too much about that film, but this is technically our first day of the next unit, the meaning unit. So I want to make sure that we have pivoted gears, but also there's never anything wrong. If you guys want to talk about Gather, come to office hours. You're like, I don't know what to talk about. Bring up Gather. I'll talk about salmon forever, but also I want to hear what you thought about it. Um, no one used the discussion post last week. I've actually just remembered today to put one up. No pressure on those, but also uh, last week was kind of cool. So if you ever want to go back and chime in on one in retrospect, I might toggle it so they're open all semester. Right now, they're just open for the week of. But yeah, did anyone show it to a friend or tell a friend, a family, anybody? You could lie and just show a hand. We got a couple. We got a couple. That's good. That's good. Um, I resist the urge to show it to everyone who comes to my house. But that's depends on how many times they come. Well, did anyone see that there was a midterm essay posted last night? The prompt announcement went out. Excellent. I wanted to just take a couple minutes to look at it together, and we're gonna go full screen, maybe on this bad boy. No. I want to make it bigger no matter what, but oh shit, I can't fucking read that. Uh, Alrighty, we're gonna do this then. Oh, that's better. Anyway, one more time. How's that look to the back row? Sound good? I can see it on the back one. Okay, excellent. Now, essentially what you're doing in the midterm essay is showing us that you've been doing the reading by
Oh, thank you.
citing the reading, but also showing us how you are trying to bring kind of your own reflections to the subject. And so I selfishly also always think of this as a, oh shit, where's the chat box? As a way to learn more about you guys. I can't, we'll never know. If you've asked me something on chat, I can't see the box, but I'll get back to it ASAP. Now, in this essay, if you find yourself being like, I don't want to talk about home for whatever reason, that's not a strict part. Really, you could pick any place and just run with the rest of the assignment. But I like to use it as a way, yeah, to get to know more about you guys just as people, but also give you the tools of what we're learning in class to kind of think about where you are, where you come from, who you are, and how that kind of intersects in different ways. Now, quick, small point, because it's kind of cool to say, but every semester I have a couple more students from the last class, no matter which one it was. So if you were in my class before, you're going to recognize us a little. I highly recommend reaching out one-on-one because there is a different version of this essay slightly for you that will probably build on what you wrote on last time more than anything. But if you're like, God damn, did she really just give us the same paper? No. But this is because, right, this is the stuff I build my work on, the importance of place as sociologists. And so in both classes, that's where we kind of start to look at how place structures inequality in the area you call home. Now, in order to do this, over the course of the prompt, I basically give you like the hit list of what we're expecting to see. There's also a rubric under essay resources to kind of give you a sense of like what the different papers look like across the point values. But most importantly, if you feel like you submit a paper that you're addressing all of these parts, everything on the first page is in your paper, you're going to be doing good. You're going to be sitting pretty. You may hopefully do really, really well, but you also are getting a chance to be graded by us for the first time. And we want to have some really good writers come out of the class. So yeah, bring the heat and hopefully we can find a couple places to make it better. But I want to enable you guys to like do this paper well. So I try to be really technical on this first page, like what are the nuts and bolts we're expecting to see in the paper. Ultimately, you should be drawing on at least 4 readings from the class. It can be so far, but if you actually want to look ahead, maybe there's stuff at a later week that's relevant to the point of inequality you want to talk about, you're more than welcome to like crib from the syllabus other things. But that wouldn't actually count as 2 of your external sources, right? So if it comes from the syllabus, it's going towards that 4 count. But A papers are going to be the ones that have these 4 internal sources and 2 external sources. When we say external, we mean things like news articles, journal articles, documentaries, podcasts. You can also use American Fact Finder, which is a way to kind of get into census data. And there's a tutorial video on CAT courses for that as well. But you are going to answer this question. And ideally, you know, it's not going to be just the stuff you find elsewhere, though. This is home. So I want you guys to take some time to reflect. And if you have personal anecdotes that seem relevant, those can be part of your paper, but you would want to find ways to do what we call in research triangulating, which means like say, I have a intro paragraph example coming up, but if you were trying to write maybe about living on one side of town and you notice that one side of town looks like this, the other side of town looks like that. That's pretty standard in most towns. That's also very place-based inequality. If you went and looked maybe at that area at a census perspective, you might see different outcomes. But you could also just start with like, you know, I went to one school. In my town, for example, we all went to the same high school. But then for middle school and before, we were at 2 different K through 8, or no, K through 5. K through 5, we were all at different grade schools. Middle school, we all came together, but the high school, because it's a very rural area, so in a lot of places where you live and like the school you go to, it's super shaped by the property taxes, quite honestly. So if you are in the poor side of town, you're going to see that directly reflected in the schools on that side of town. as opposed to the ones perhaps in a wealthier neighborhood. In a city, maybe where everyone goes to the same high school, we instead saw that difference at like the elementary school level, where there was very much like a poor school and a rich school. So those kinds of things, you wouldn't write the whole essay from that perspective, but those are the things you can be thinking about internally to like make those connections and then go and find the outside data points that help you make your point. Does anything about this? Anybody got any questions about any parts of this? It might look a little different, but hopefully you've seen essays before. Although I'm a weirdo, I guess there's not a lot of essays. So at minimum, I like you guys being able to sharpen that skill set in this class. But big heads up, I love helping with the essays. It's important to me that what I do for one student, I can do for all students though. So sometimes I get requests to look at like maybe an entire draft. I couldn't do that for every student, so I can't do that for one student. But I'm more than happy to talk about your ideas in office hours, or you can send me an outline, like just I was like, 1 page is a long outline, but like bullet points. What are the things you hope to accomplish? Send it my way and I'll send you back some ideas. That's something I actually love doing. And if you have any anxiety about what the essay should look like, that is the best way to make that go away, is just to come in, get some FaceTime, and we'll talk about it together. Now, if you'll recall from our syllabus discussion, there's kind of this rolling deadline. So online, if you submit it before Monday, 10/21, it's on time. And, that's how we kind of have a line in the sand, right? That CAT courses flags as late or not late. You can still turn papers in after that. You just need to be in touch. But we have a priority deadline on the Friday before that, which we're committing to making sure you get comments back in time for the final paper. If you decide to submit on the Friday deadline, we also grade those papers first. Whereas if you're a Monday submission, we just kind of do a rolling wave. We try to disperse them at the same time if there's not much of a difference, but we for sure know that anyone who submits on the red date will get their comments well before they're drafting their final paper, which isn't too close to now, but by the time we turn it back to you, it won't be very long from now. Thank you also for your patience. I was hoping to get this up on Friday and I'm on an enormous deadline. It was one of those days where I believe in karma, so I try not to pull the I'm sick card too often because it comes back real fast if I do. But it was one of those days where I was like, I'm sick, I'm just weak. But we don't see each other next week because I'm traveling. So I wanted to come together today. But I do apologize if you're waiting on an email from me. That is even worse than usual. Now, I really want you guys to know these essays are possible. So in both this one and the final, which not really going to talk about now, like that's just there for curious people, but I'm not trying to distract anyone. It's just there if you want to know, but don't look at it if it's going to give you anxiety. I want you to know though that you can write this essay. And so I include like an example intro paragraph. It's not like you have to write yours like this. It's just an idea. So you can see that like, okay, these are the parts I would expect to see in my paper, although it would look different in terms of details. The general structure can be similar. And so I essentially talk about the, the way that place is structuring inequality. I forgot to mention this. This is, there's a couple parts of this. You're not only talking about the bad stuff that's going on, but you're also going to take a minute to talk about local knowledge. Like in this class, we don't just look at the trauma, we look at the resilience as well. And actually, if you've been in my class before, that's where things are different. In the other class, arguably, it's pretty hard line focused on the kind of negative side of the equation. And in this class, you get a chance to talk about maybe an example of something that kind of like the proverbial rose through the concrete that is still flourishing in spite of, or maybe in response to the inequality you've outlined. So in my example paragraph, I go on to essentially talk about the reservation being a place, right, that's structuring inequality like we see elsewhere. But then at the same time, there's examples of how important this place is to the people who live there and the people who go back and forth. So trying to hold space for both in the paper is what you're doing as well. And then I conclude with just, since we do have some word counts or page limits rather, I just give you an idea of maybe what you would expect to see in a paper like this. These aren't hard rules. It's just ideas, hopefully, to make your paper more tangible. Does anyone have any questions about the essay? It's okay if this is your first time seeing it. If anything, I love anyone who was missing it on Friday. I love that you're that on it. It was me. I get it. But if you didn't miss it and you're just like, oh yeah, I was gonna look at that right now. Hopefully this is the first time you're seeing it. But if you start having questions, definitely reach out sooner than later. As you can imagine, things get a little busier right before the deadline because everyone has questions then. But we always have office hours on Thursdays and then by Zoom. It's highly likely I will schedule maybe some in-person office hours right before the deadline, maybe 2 days where I kind of just go sit in my office for a couple hours. I always think no one's going to come bug me and I'll get to decorate. But then people do come. It's wild. And they come just to hang. So yeah, all are welcome. I need to get candy for my bowl, but I have a bunch of stuff to hang up. So yeah. It doesn't look like psychos are in there more. A psycho is in there anymore. It was totally empty for like a year and a half. And then I had office hours and a student who I have a good relationship, candidly was like, this, I know why it's empty, but this seems psycho. I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. It feels like a tiny institutional room and you can't paint it pink. So we're working on it. We're working. Well, I want to jump into today because we do change gears. Definitely, like I said, be in touch with questions, but I think that'll be the case the longer we go. Let's go here, but I wanted to check on Zoom and yeah, I genuinely couldn't see the chat. There it is. Okay. Awesome. Hopefully no one on chat or on Zoom had any questions, but feel free to put it in the chat. And let's get back to this bad boy. Alrighty. Now today I'm going to give you guys some cool lecture points, but I want to build around a group activity primarily. So I'm going to keep my own time. Yeah. This isn't going to take very long in terms of lecture content, but this week is a week that I think I finally hit the sweet spot. But I did want to say that this week in other versions of this class actually had a different reading assigned for today. And so that reading never really was the right one. There was just a couple parts that worked, but I'm really, really happy about this. Is it Hironimus and somebody? I just love that name. But the sociological imagination and social responsibility, that article slaps. But I wanted to put a couple data points on the board from the previous iteration, just because we are going to kind of be thinking about it in a long-term sense. Now, in other versions of this class, we looked at the sociological imagination, which we'll talk more about on a couple slides. Essentially, in the kind of historical development of sociology as a discipline, which is a super important discussion, but it's a little more removed from the stuff we're going to be working with. And like, I don't want to say it was almost mind-numbing to get to that one nugget. So I found a better article. But what is most important to know about sociology, even with the cool concepts like the sociological imagination, is that fundamentally sociology, as maybe one of the forebears of many other social sciences, but definitely one of the first biggies, it fundamentally is operating within what has been called a stadial theory of development, which essentially is always taking as a first order assumption that society, progress, development, culture moves in one direction. And we're always trying to get to the other end. Ultimately, in this frame of commerce is what they kind of hold up: commerce, capitalism, society geared around maybe the exchange of goods rather than one's direct production of what they need to survive. Now, in general, hunting and gathering was seen as really the lesser definitely as compared to commerce, but kind of an idea that that's what the past did. No one does that anymore. Anyone who does is arguably subhuman, that they are not even yet developed enough to start doing things like settling down for pastoral, right, which is like having sheep or animals that are living off the land. But then settled agriculture is when you're actually planting things and living in the place where you're planting things, and ultimately to commerce. This idea is kind of been used to describe social progress across Europe in particular. But sociology, like other social sciences, is guilty of holding this up as some that this is the way all societies are, that this is a good thing, and that the inherent kind of denigration of societies that maybe produce this hunting gathering experience, that those are somehow less than. It's something that we don't point out enough, but that's arguably also one of the reasons why we don't see sociology engage with our communities, because in some ways they see their questions as taking place after people have advanced out of a certain stage of development. Now, arguably, there's many critiques about this entire way of thinking, but to hit the biggies, it's fundamentally based out of Europe, right? So there's a Eurocentrism to it, that what happened there somehow speaks for the world, when one could say that maybe perhaps what happened there was a really specific way of being that in turn changed the globe. There's a kind of holding up of modernity and like modernity and difference between those who aren't living that way, like and the difference isn't good either. There's always these kind of what would you call it, kind of like good, bad, right, wrong, these inherent differences between the old world, the new world, the global north, the global south, that in some ways you don't realize that these direct comparisons are actually taking place within this larger discussion that assumes stages of development going in one direction, and that that is ideal for all places and all people. Arguably, these concepts are the same structures of power, just different centuries. And sociology, whether it means to or not, or rather in the absence of purposefully acting otherwise, it can only help to be a colonial extension, because that is kind of the tools of its genesis. I personally don't think we have to throw the whole discipline out. I'd be in the wrong. I don't know what I'd do if I thought that. But instead, like maybe there are some things here that we can run with if we're willing to push back on these fundamental assumptions first and foremost. Now that should sound somewhat new to you because you didn't read something about it, but those were some points that I just wanted you guys to kind of run with going forward. But the meat of it actually today is this concept of the sociological imagination. Now, this is a pretty big concept in the discipline. Has anyone who's been in other soci classes heard of this before? The idea, seen it referenced? Couple nods, yes. Let's see, would anyone, I've got a definition up and we're going to define it on the next couple slides as well. But what would you guys say the sociological imagination is? Would anyone be brave enough? Or even to summarize what's on the board? Or the PowerPoint? What other classes does it come up in? Yeah, or like where do you hear it? I don't know. Nice, yeah. Sometimes you see it in Intro to Soc as well. Yeah. Now, I sometimes maybe I have to separate how I feel about a concept from what I'm going to teach you guys, but then it's also like, but I picked the syllabus. I don't have to. And so yeah, I can just think about how I was a senior, or no, I was a junior. I told you guys I was a go-getter. And so my senior year, I actually did this huge project that was like a master's level study, but you had to finish your major by the end of your junior year and prove that you wouldn't shit the bed with this wild senior year. But they'd give you all the money you wanted to do this senior thesis. So I was a junior in like a culminating experience class. And I'm like the perpetual nerd. I will say most days I was more excited about what we were reading than the seniors who were just like, I'm so done with it. I don't want to be like, there's a selection effect too. Culminating experiences, especially this one, people are like, I'm done with it. But this was the one idea that I remember people actually thinking was really cool. And for me, it just really stuck. The idea that we could use sociology as a way to orient ourselves in time and space, such that the personal problems that we find ourselves consumed by could also be explained within this larger context. And for me, that was important because the personal troubles I was trying to explain weren't necessarily my own. They were the ways my life had been impacted by, the substance use of my dad, living in poverty, seeing things like domestic violence. These had always seemed super micro and very much a reflection of personal choices. But then to get the idea that what if you step back and you were able to orient these personal troubles in this larger conversation of time and space? It's a little more quantum than sociology usually gets, but it's one of those ideas that C. Wright Mills, I don't even know if he wrote anything else, but you don't have to. If you get one good idea like this, like they go on to name, what is it? There's an award you can win maybe someday. That's like about, I want to say it's either the best first book or just best book of the year. It's one or the other. But it's called the C. Wright Mills Award from the American Sociological Association. So it's like this, it's the big idea. Now, what do we mean by personal troubles of milieu and the social structure? Troubles. Now, this article, I really highly recommend it just as a read. I think it's super galvanizing. But the general idea that you guys are learning to use your sociology and to like care about the world by seeing other worlds or getting exposed to other things, I think we've been doing that in this class already, really good. And that's what the whole class is designed for. So honestly, when I found this article right before the semester started, I was like, how the fuck have I Googled this a million times only to just now find this article? So sorry to anyone else who had to read that other article, but this one is really good, but especially because it goes back to the original source. The sociological imagination is this really cool thing, but it's the tiniest book that spends like 150 pages to just say what the next two slides say. So we're going to marinate on it for a second. But we don't want to say that we're like minimizing the idea of troubles. We're just trying to separate the two for the sake of analysis. If we think of troubles really being what we often kind of talk about when we're talking about choices, behaviors, or like the things that any one person experiences, what do they say here in the limited areas of social life of which he is directly and personally aware? Therefore, they would say that the statement and resolution of troubles properly lie within the individual as a biographical entity and within the scope of his immediate milieu. The social setting that's directly open to his personal experience and to some extent his willful activity. So they're trying to make a distinction between things that are private matters, but we know that there's an intersection point that they're talking about. Like, where does this point of personal trouble, private matter, where does that intersect with these larger forces, which they're calling, or C. Wright Mills rather, called issues having to do with matters that transcend these local environments, right? The meso, the macro, where local environments of the individual and the range of his inner life, that these are impacting them, but they're a level or levels beyond that. And they have more to do instead with the organization of many smaller milieu, like every person's experience. These are those levels above it where we're organizing those different experiences and then structuring it into a society, right? With institutions that are historically, right, having kind of their basis as a whole. This is where we're getting the issue of a public matter. And the sociological imagination is this idea that's trying to discuss outcomes at that intersectional point. And I think that's super powerful for our larger point in this class, how a lot of the things we are looking at, it's not as clean as saying it's just structure, or it's just culture, it's just personal choice, or it's just context. Instead, it's somewhere in between. It's at that intersectional point. And the sociological imagination kind of gives us like a microscope and a lens to that point exactly. Now, I do like to show the following video as an example of the sociological imagination, but I will say I do want to just do a soft content warning, it does discuss like body image. And while I appreciate most of its points, I remember that the last couple minutes, I can't remember why I start getting upset, but something tells me it'll be abundant. So take the last couple minutes with a massive grain of salt, but the front end is what we're gonna watch. And if I decide to close it early, that's why. But we're going to do a group activity. So as you're watching it, feel free. I probably won't make you guys move today. We've got an activity on Thursday too. So you guys can just be comfy where you're at, but we'll group up. If you're on Zoom, you get to do the same. Alrighty, let's show this guy.
We all have imagination. It lets us be creative and envision life in a new way. But did you know that there's something called the sociological imagination? In sociology, to understand one's own self, we must understand the relationship between self and society. The concept of the sociological imagination was presented in 1959 by C. Wright Mills in his famous book of the same title, where he states, "The sociological imagination enables us to grasp history and biography and the relations between the two within society. That is its task and its promise. The concept is to understand the distinction between a person's troubles and public issues. At what point does something such as unemployment or trouble finding a job shift from being a personal problem to a public issue? If one person is unemployed, that is a personal problem. If 1 million out of 10 million people cannot find employment, that is a public issue. According to Mills, there is an intricate relationship between the individual and society. Whatever a person does is not just because it is of their own choice or personal preference. A behavior as simple as exercise can be looked at from multiple perspectives. For example, exercise can provide health benefits such as lowering blood pressure, maintaining a healthy weight, or send endorphins to help alleviate stress. It can be a social activity such as taking a walk with a group of friends or playing on a sports team. It can increase productivity at work and benefit the company. And it can inspire communities to take action by building walking, biking, and running trails. So, while exercise benefits the individual, it also has a larger purpose in the social world. A person benefits from being surrounded by a community that encourages exercise and makes it easier for a person to do so, but it can also have the opposite effect if a person is surrounded by a community that does not emphasize exercise. Practically any personal behavior can be looked at with the sociological imagination. Let's take this and apply it to the very public issue of obesity in the United States. Or is it a personal trouble? Tough question. Let's figure it out. From the personal perspective, we all need to eat to live, and there are many reasons other than necessity that we gather around food. Celebrations such as birthdays, weddings, funerals, job promotions, and holidays, or just socializing with friends, often involves food. What we eat and how much we eat is within our personal control. Or is it? Let's say a person belongs to a family that often gets together for large gatherings. At these gatherings, there are often lots of burgers, chips, cookies, and desserts. Choices are limited for low-fat or healthy options. After eating, the family gathers around a fire, and not much is done in the way of activities such as walking, running, or even a family-friendly game of football. Over time, one realizes that these gatherings are contributing to the growing waistline. Well, we could say that this is a personal trouble. That person is making a conscious choice on what they put into their body and are in control of what they eat. While this may be true to some extent, is it all within a person's control? Our behavior is influenced by others, and in cases such as family gatherings, how might the family react if one chooses not to eat what others are eating? Social acceptance is important, even among our family. We also tend to like similar foods of the people around us. So we could say that we all make personal choices and are responsible for our own behavior, but what we eat and how we spend our time does not happen in a vacuum. Not that we blame family for choices, but that choices are influenced by the people around us. Let's take this a step further and ask ourselves what else may influence a person becoming obese. And when does a personal problem turn into a larger social issue? According to the Center for Disease Control, approximately 35% of the United States adult population is considered obese. That percentage bumps up to 69% when we consider all adults who are also overweight. Social structures that contribute to obesity include food deserts, which are areas of the United States that do not have access to healthy, whole, and fresh foods and can be found in both urban and rural areas. These are places where it is difficult to grow healthy food locally, and there is little to no access to local markets that would carry such items. Then there are government subsidies. Research shows that less than 1% of subsidies by the United States government goes towards the production of fresh fruits and vegetables, while the majority of the subsidies are given for meat, dairy, and grain production. This means that prices of healthy foods are significantly more expensive than the prices of unhealthy foods. We are also biologically driven to get the biggest energy bang for our buck. So if we have $5 in our pockets, and are hungry, we are more likely going to purchase $5 in fast food rather than $5 for a bag of apples. While these are not the only social structures that contribute to obesity as a social problem, they give a clear picture of how society contributes to this. And of course, this creates more social issues. Currently, we spend approximately $147 billion on illnesses and diseases related to obesity. This creates even more issues when the cost of health care and health insurance increases because of obesity-related illness and disease. So we can say that society influences a person's behavior, and that person's behavior contributes to a social issue. What is another issue that you have typically described as a personal trouble that also has social factors that contribute to it? How do social structures such as government, economy, education, and religion contribute to social problems? And how does the sociological imagination help us examine human behavior?
Building your online business?
It's the middle part that bugs me. It's hard. It's a difficult issue. So maybe I should give them credit for trying to discuss it, but I'm hoping you can take the front end and back ends instead and think about those questions they posed at the very end, because you're going to do that together now. I'm going to group the people up in the room first. Zoom, you will get rooms, but it will be based on the topics that are left. So on the board, or on the PowerPoint rather, I have included 9 different ideas or phenomenon, outcomes, whatever, that you are going to essentially engage this larger question of where is the line between social problem and personal trouble. And we've talked about some of these in different ways, but we also haven't reached some of this in content yet. So you can look ahead on the syllabus when you're in your groups if helpful, but I'm hoping more than anything, this is like a time to discuss and talk together, and then we'll report out. And I've got this cool thing I always draw. Hopefully it will go well. So like I said, I'm not gonna have you guys move. We're gonna do groups of, how many people are on Zoom? Let's see here. We're only gonna do 2 groups on Zoom. So we want 6 or 7 in the room. We'll do groups of 5, but if we have to make them bigger, it'll be a soft 5. Alrighty, let's see here. I'm probably gonna go by row. It's easy this time. And when I assign by row, don't like kind of come together to make a tiny talking circle. But yeah, that doesn't matter as much to the Zoom people. I don't know why I said it to them. I meant you guys. I don't want to single anyone out. So back row, there are 6 of you. So you'll be a group. We're going to do colors. That might sound silly, but the colors will make sense later. So what is a color? And you can't pick the same color as a different group. What's a color you'd like to pick, and what is your topic you'd like to pick? Purple. Okay. And which topic of these things? I realized that we're going to do it slightly different from all the other groups. I was like, I didn't mean to give these guys dibs. Unemployment sounds good. Purple. Oopsie. This is why I gotta have it here. All righty, purple. Okay, so let me make the groups first. And then you guys will pick a color when I'm giving you your group. And then there'll be an incentive, like volunteer to pick your topic. That doesn't make sense, but if I go through, you guys won't get the same pick. So I kind of want there to be a little bit of randomness to it, but let's make the groups first. I was like, this is, we'll get there together. Okay, so the next group is gonna be Jacob, right? Jacob down. We'll have a group there. What color would this group like? Just help me remember. Red. Okay, group red. Let's see here in the front row. You guys are gonna be a small group of 4, I think. What color would you like? We got red and purple on the board, so just not red or purple. Pink. Okay, remember that you're pink. Okay. 6 is big enough. Cushy, right? I'm gonna have you join the back row, I think. What color would you guys like? I'll let you pick because I called on you. Green. Ha! You read it in my mind. Okay, green in the back. And then this group here, what color would you guys like? Blue? Okay. Okay. So now everyone's got a group, everyone's got a color. Who wants to pick their topic? Shout out your team's color. Pink. What do you want? Oops, where's my cursor? There it is. Pink. And then I think I heard red go next. What do you guys want?
Food.
Food. Okay, what does blue want? 6 or 7? What do you guys think? Was I here? 7. Okay, blue. And then green. You guys get the last pick in the room, and then we'll kick it to Zoom, and I'll assign you guys in Zoom-ish. What do you guys like? We got dating, academic achievement, beauty, presentation of self, parenting, and healthcare / COVID. Yeah. With 3, you say? Okay. Nice. All righty. Okay, so let me set the vibe in the room, and then you guys on Zoom will get your assignment shortly. We're gonna take a good couple minutes to do this, and then report out. So let's put at least 10 minutes on. Let's see, what's a good?
Battery 5.
Kind of shuffle this bad boy. Let's see, yeah, this is a good one. Why not? All right, get going, guys, in the room.
I know it is. You like staring at the
Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought I said, yeah, because she was going to that one and you guys were joining this one. My bad. That was in my head and not out loud. You guys are blue. Blue. Go big blue. Okay. Woo.
I know that I'm not perfect, and I've got an attitude. I hope that you notice I've got so much love for you. And
Anyone on Zoom? Any preferences on Zoom? Doesn't seem like it. Okay, I'll give you guys a good idea. Let's see here. Let's see here. If you end up in room 2, you're gonna be beauty and presentation of self. You'll see it. Self-image, we'll say. You'll see it at the top of the group name. If you wind up in room 1, you will be in the you'll be in dating, I think. Yeah. Yeah. God, yeah, that's hard. We're gonna do yeah, we're gonna do dating. Okay. All right.
And no, I'm sorry. They're slightly bigger with yeah.
Sandra, excuse me. Okay. Woo-hoo. It's warm. A little warm in here. Yeah. Yeah. Right. It's like faking us out. So I definitely need. You know what you know. 3 minutes left. Make sure you got someone who's ready to report out, or a couple people, however you want to share it. Huh. One minute left. Okay. All right, Zoom's coming back to us. We'll play a couple seconds to the next song, but they're coming back. They're coming back. All righty, Zoom's almost all back. All righty. Okay, Zoom's basically back. Okay, if you're on Zoom, feel free to put it in the chat and I will get to write it on the board. But I'm going to try and make it so you can see what it is I'm drawing on the board. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to go around the room and report out. And I have this thing that I try and kind of pick out some themes from what you guys are saying. So there might be overlap across the different topics. But there is an incentive to go sooner so that, yeah, what you talk about gets to go on the board. Yeah, who wants to go first? You can shout out your color. Yeah. Don't all shout at once. Blue, blue, go blue. Yeah, what would you say? What is the line between social problem and personal trouble as it relates to substance use? Really good way to start.
So like, can we share this social structure?
Yeah, lay it on us.
We put poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Is, we discussed is that substance use is the result of something. In most cases, it's trauma. It's not necessarily sometimes a choice as opposed to the result. And then kind of what we were discussing is that other topics on that list essentially relate to the result of substance use. In that case, accessibility is a big thing. Who has access to substances as far as like the money goes. We were discussing again how a bottle of vodka over the counter is like downwards of $7. And now even at McDonald's, I can't get you like something off the dollar menu because that doesn't really exist anymore. So it's more so like, you know, what's accessible and what's not in terms of money. And we also talked about corruption, just in case of like crime. In the prisons, you see a lot of the time that's corrupt, and the ones that are bringing in substances are usually the ones in power, including the police. And then also about pop culture, essentially what's being shown, like in music videos or movies, it's substances. So the younger population might think it's like something that can essentially make you cool. I was like, I'm gonna add something to the board, but I'm gonna see if it comes up in another group. But I definitely appreciate the point of media in particular, kind of being one of the areas where you can see these things come together, right? Like the things we're consuming and how that in turn impacts what we think or how we move. So to give you a method of the madness, as we put more things on the board, I'm hoping you will see some of these things not as clear one way or the other, but instead just what does it mean about me as a social object and not me, myself and I as I'm an autonomous unit, you know? Green wants to go next, I think. Yeah. We talked about like the personal life between like the social problem and personal trouble. Is that
Academic
if one person is struggling in the class, and that would be more personal trouble, but if the whole classroom is struggling, then that's where it would be a social problem. And we compared it with mostly being location. If the location is in a terrible spot where most of the people are struggling.
Why does the green never work? This is a brand new green too. Sorry, conspiracy. Keep talking.
Then that would be the biggest issue because they wouldn't get as much funding as other schools that where the income is more higher. And then another thing we talked about that it would be more personal trouble would also be like mental health issues. If a student is struggling, then they would obviously do a lot worse than other people. And then also the resources that are available for the students, if they don't have as many resources such as tutors, counselors, then they wouldn't also be able to do as well.
Yes, right. We can see how these things are connected. Now you guys said much more than what I wrote on the board, but I'm trying to kind of show the different almost layers, one could say, that as much as we think we're making our own choices as we see the lay of the land, there's actually a lot of strings that are attached to us, strings or filters or lenses with how you're seeing the world and the options you have at hand. And so, yes, no, I love the points. Seems like we got another shout out to mental health. Let's see here. And I think we could think of this. We're going to say the structure, because not to say that trauma and brain health, unfortunately, that's actually my work is trying to talk about that as a social problem that's not equally distributed, but we've almost entirely considered it in the realm of brain science in like a small, really small microwave, right? I love this. Who wants to go next after we had green? So we've got 3 more in the room. I'm going to check on Zoom while we do this. The dating group, I'm going to read it out loud while you guys decide who wants to go next. For dating, they put the line between social problems and dating is that we in society don't have time to look for a partner since We ourselves barely have time for us, and the personal trouble is not finding the right match. The influence of social media has taken a toll on the dating life by making it very excessive on what right and wrong in a relationship, or what is right and wrong in a relationship, excuse me. And dating apps don't really help since there are many people with bad intentions. Geez, what a thought. You guys are exclusively in the dating app generation. You don't, what is it? You've seen archival footage of people meeting in coffee shops, I'm sure. It was historical even when I was looking. But okay, so I wanted to add, and this came up earlier, but I wanted to see where else it would come up. Media, social media being one. We can also think of news media being another. So we have both social plus news. Excellent. Love that. Thank you for the dating group. If you guys want to report in on beauty and image, that'll be a really good one, I think, to add to the board. We've got these guys. Red, go ahead.
So based on what the video kind of touched on, we were discussing how food, it's not as easy as just changing your eating habits, because again, like the social problem ties back into like food deserts and affordability. It might be easier for example, a mother to go to like a KFC and get like a family meal, instead of like finding a way to get to the grocery store and buying like vegetables and all this to make a whole.
Time, that was something, another group, but you guys are definitely echoing time even being a layer here. Because time is a resource and we don't always put that. Sorry, I'm trying to think of where to go. Okay, keep going, keep going.
And then there's also like, again, it's not as easy as just saying someone can necessarily control their eating habits, because even mental health can play a part in that as well. And then there's also like the cultural aspect, cultures of some specific type of food, so that also plays a part.
Yes, I was hoping someone would say culture. Alrighty, I think we have purple and pink to go. Who wants to go next? For those two. Go ahead, pink.
Okay, so, I guess the kind of explain the first question, we mainly explore the social problem first, because then I go from, but, we were talking about, and I never been about this, but we were talking about how, our mass incarceration is very corrupt, and there are systems in place by the government and private policies that allow for specific communities to be marginalized. So governments want more people to be incarcerated, and to do this, they fund police, like swing police departments, things like that, more money for certain mass incarceration, things like that, which then causes like the police department to be more like to incarcerate people. You know? And then we were talking about how
what kind of, I was gonna say, we also know racial, like I was gonna say, I was like, okay, we don't have race yet, but that is, we were looking for, okay.
yeah, we were also talking about how specific communities, I think this was, I can't remember if it was in this class or if it was in the class, a lot of my classes have theory, but how specific communities and populations, specifically people in poverty and people of color, are more profiled by the policemen and things like that, because their communities are specifically like monitored a lot more. So this causes them to have a higher chance of being incarcerated versus like white communities, even though they also have a lot of crime. And then we went on to talk about personal troubles, and we were saying that within these different systems and things like that, in place for and then like by police and things like that, it makes it very, very hard for people to come out who have been out of prison to go back to society to be more than what they were before. So we're talking about how if we implemented rehabilitation systems and things like that, those are going to be more effective than just the things that are about this.
I love it. We're almost at time, so I don't want to keep you guys purple. Is there anything we'd add to the board that's not already there? Because I hope you're seeing as I scurried around trying to find somewhere to write another line. We are quickly overwhelmed by all the competing structures that we actually navigate on any given day. I want to say Beauty Group actually did give us some points. I just didn't see them. And they talked about access kind of to income, money, but also images, like the things we are seeing as beautiful, obviously shaping what we're trying to attain. That will come back up on our colorism week. But overall, these things together, this is where we get into that paradigm and worldview. So in this class, we sometimes spend a lot of time looking from this outside level, but as you go in, you kind of see all these different things. And this crazy atom looking thing is how I've always pictured the sociological imagination in different ways. Hopefully it helped make it more clear. If not, forget it, delete it, but you'll see a picture of it online. Thank you guys in the room for a good class. Yeah, and on Zoom. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you guys.
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead and give me 1 second to clear the room and I'll unplug you. Yeah. We've got just a couple people in the room, but if you're waiting on Zoom, just go ahead and keep waiting. We'll be 1 second. Alrighty, Zoom people, there's a couple of you still on. I want to be respectful of privacy. So if you have questions that require privacy, just let me know. Negotiate that. I am starting to clear the room though, so I've turned it on. Go ahead and pipe up. If you're just waiting for the Zoom to stop though, you're more than welcome to go. I've got Nancy, Christian, and Miguel. Is there anything I can help with?
Yeah, I have a question. So for like the midterm essay, I just thought of a really cool topic I want to write about, like what we just discussed in class about like beauty characteristic. Can we write about that?
Yeah, I think where you're gonna want to bring it back to the assignment is that because it's about place, structuring, and equality, you're gonna want to have there be like a really good connection between the location and the conclusion you're trying to make, maybe that it's impacting beauty or image, something like that. So that I think actually would be very exciting, and I haven't read a paper like that. But don't forget that you'll also have a chance with the final paper. So if you're end up writing the outline and you're like, I don't know if it really fits, you have that option too. But I can actually think of lots of ways where you could think of how where you're from impacts how you present
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah, and
I
how
was,
that can help or hurt depending on where you're at.
yeah, I was gonna write about like the places in California, generally. Like I'm from NorCal. NorCal beauty standards and SoCal beauty standards are like two different things. And like being
Yeah.
that like I have seen like two different standards and I was gonna like
Yeah.
explain more in depth of that.
Yes. If I were you, I would write it out, get your ideas on paper, and I think it sounds like a good idea. The thing I would maybe ask you to think through is based on that, how do you see it impacting, like, are there times where looking a certain way is maybe not helping you or it's hurting you, or by the opposite, do you dress a certain way because you're going to be in NorCal? So like I would want you to find some places where you can show the inequality that results from this observed difference. But provided you can do that, and like I said, you've already got the part where it's linked to location, so I think you've got that part worked out. Just maybe do a little thinking on that other part, and if it comes to mind, I think it'll be a good idea, and you can send the outline too once you flesh it out more. I'm happy to look at it that way too.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think I'll just talk to you more on Thursday.
Okay, sounds good. We have one person who might be ahead of you, but we'll basically just start the queue and we hang out outside or
Yeah.
walk around, find a spot. So yes, I'll plan on talking more with you on Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
Yeah, of course. You too. I gotta erase the board. Miguel and Christian, is there anything I can help with? Am I just providing some cool ambient sound in the background? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
I did have a question. Basically, I just wanted to double check. I had a class last semester, so
Yeah,
I did the essay.
yes.
So you said we have to reach out to you um,
Yeah,
and
so I
tell you
wish,
like,
uh,
go
I love
ahead.
that. So yeah, let me tell you, you're not the only one, and I should have, normally I try and give everyone privacy, but you totally, if you'd heard what I told Gabriel just before, basically, you have two options. You can decide if you want to do a new take on home, and we'll talk more about what that looks like next, or you can be like, I just don't think I can squeeze more out of it. It would be easier just to write about a different place. So, the location part can be flexible, and then that's where it kind of opens you up to just a new paper. But if you decide instead, like I still want to write about home just differently, you have a couple choices. Depending on how you scored on your essay last time, there might be room to like improve. You also can think of like I was just explaining that if you compare the two prompts, I would say that, you never can do a direct copy and paste. We know that, but the paper from last time, about 75% would apply, but it needs to be reconfigured. And then your actual conclusion, though, that you're kind of leading the reader to, that's going to be different because of that local knowledge part. So, if it was me and I was trying to make the decision, I would kind of go back and look at my old essay and let's say, what if I got like a B, a low B, or even a C? That kind of a paper could very easily be turned in addressing the comments from last time and then adding the parts for this new prompt. If you did really, really well last time and you're like, this paper, it's just really hard to know what else I could add. In that scenario, you would send it to me and I can kind of point some areas where, send me an email saying that I want to write about my essay, but I need help kind of seeing where. I would look at your old essay and maybe show areas where you can expand or change. But I do think take a look at that local knowledge part, because that kind of depends, that like your answer to what that is might change how you decide to move. Because if you feel like you can make a different paper because it's just a different like punchline, that might not be so bad. I see a note from Miguel that I just want to say I see it, so we'll come back to you, Miguel. But if we have to talk by email, it might be better if your mic's not working. But Christian, yeah, go ahead and think about, I think that's the big question is like, do you want to write about home again, or would it be easier to do another location? In which case things are more straightforward. But if you want to write about home and you need like a little more clarity on what that would look like, send me a note that that's what you've decided, and I'll take a look at your essay from last year and just kind of indicate the areas maybe where it would be different or where you could pivot for this prompt. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect. I think I'll probably just do just take a different spin to home. I think that's what I'll do, but I'll see and I'll let you know. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah. And if you feel like you've got enough to go on, you're more than welcome. It's I know for me, sometimes it's harder to see your own work where it could be different, but then at the same time, if you're like, no, I could totally see kind of, home's so big, maybe there's just a different inequality to kind of focus on. You've got all the parts, and hopefully you'll have fun, even though you've done it once before. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Of course. Awesome. We'll see you next time.
I'll see you on
Alrighty,
Thursday.
Miguel, say, Miguel, I see you're still here. Do you want to try your mic one more time? It does say it's off. There we go.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to let you know that Thursday I won't be making it to class and I wouldn't be able to join the Zoom either. Is there anything I can do to like either if like there's like any like work during the class time? Because I know you do like the
No.
so
So we'll have the quizzes. So if you'll just send me a note, you can send it now, or you can send it next, or after our next session that just asks to reset the quiz. We will be. I haven't put any of the recordings up, but I am technically recording things. So in terms of lecture content, you'll be able to see the slides, and there is a group activity that you'll see board pictures from, but I wouldn't kill yourself over it. I would just maybe if you end up having questions after the fact, reach out. And if you're curious down the road, once the lectures are posted, you're more than welcome to take a look. There's nothing besides the quiz that you have to worry about for points.
And I think the quiz I would be able to do on time.
Okay.
It's just the Zoom. I wouldn't be able to do the Zoom because I won't be anywhere to access it.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, and don't forget, you have 3 times every semester that, it's no questions asked. And the most important thing is that after you come back, if you do your catching up across the slides and see the board pics, if you have questions there, you can reach out in office hours. Or if you've taken a look at your prompt, you're more than welcome to reach out about that too. I was thinking about you when I put up the final prompt. So if you want to look at that because you're curious, please do so, but also not if it's putting the cart before the horse. But yeah, let me know if you have questions about anything else.
Okay,
and I hope you have a good. I won't see you till we don't have class next week, so I'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Alrighty. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.